pull out the old Bible. Some of you got a little dust on them. Pull out that big Bible on the table or your little Bible that you used to carry to church before you got your iPhone 19 and your Galaxy 17, before you got all that. Pull that out and let's flip some pages, okay, while we're at home. Exodus chapter 4. I'm going to read 5 verses. It's not too late to share and engage, all right? Share and engage. If we say something that blesses you, say amen. If we say something that hurts you, say ouch, all right? Exodus 4, 1 through 5 reads, reading from the English Standard Version, "Then Moses answered, 'But behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice. For they will say, the Lord did not appear to you.' The Lord said to him, 'What is that in your hand?' He said, 'A staff.' And he said, 'Throw it on the ground.' So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses ran from it. But the Lord said to Moses, 'Put out your hand and catch it by the tail.' So he put out his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you." All right, let's go. How many of you remember that classic talk show, Maury? It starred crazy dude, Maury Povich, and it was known for, or eventually became known for those end of the show segments when it would be a man and a woman, and they would be attempting to find out if he was the father of the child that was in the back. It became classic for that part. And what would happen is, toward the end of the show, Maury would have his little manila envelope that had the paternity test in it, the paternity test results in it, and he would say something like, in the case of 2-year-old Victor, you are the father, right? And then you see somebody jump up, and some will be happy, some will be sad, some will be throwing chairs or ready to fight because she lied to him for 19 years that this was the father. And then in other cases, he would say, in the case of 6-year-old Johnny, you are not the father. And then somebody would jump up like, yeah, I knew I wasn't the father, and they go crazy or whatever. So it became familiar to hear those phrases, you are the father and you are not the father, from the results of the paternity test that Maury Povich will put on his show. I believe that there are many of us right here, right now, who are waiting on the results of a paternity test. Stay with me, because I know some of you was ready to type right there. Nope, not me. Yes, I believe many of us are waiting on the results of a paternity test. Something has been birthed, and we're looking at it, investigating it to see if this is something that has come out of my loins. We're looking at it and we're saying, you know what? This is a little bit bigger than the last beings that I've birthed, so there's no way that this could be mine. We're looking at what was birthed, and we're saying, this doesn't look like what I thought it should look like coming out of me. So maybe somebody made a mistake. Maybe this is not my baby. Now we're not thinking or looking or waiting on a paternity test that lets us know that if it's a physical baby, it's ours. But I think that in this season, I've been sensing, I haven't talked to anybody about this, but you can put in a comment if you feel like this is you. I've been sensing that God is doing something new in the church. the body of believers, I've been sensing that God is releasing new vision to many of us, new purpose for this next season for many of us, and I think it's catching a lot of us by surprise. You know how some like, I didn't plan this, and I think that many of us, we did not plan to have a new vision right here in June of 2020. I think that many of us, we did not plan of having a new mission or a new purpose or preparing for something different right here in June 2020. But it's here now, and we're struggling with the fact of accepting if this baby is mine or not. So I want to play Maury for a minute. How you going to do that, Pastor? Because really that's the reason why I came this morning, because they told me there was an envelope here at church addressed to Pastor Lewis Hemphill, Senior Pastor of the Link Church, 8356 Sterling Street, Irving, Texas, 75063. And I believe that the results of your paternity test is right here. I believe the results on if this baby that's being birthed right now, is your baby or not? Can I open it for you and read it for you and see what the results of the test are? And like Maury would say, when it comes to the new vision that you recently received from God, the results are you are the one. I believe that is the word for somebody this morning. You've been wrestling and struggling with the fact of if this new passion, purpose thing that God has shown you, is this really for you? Is this something that God is telling me to do? The results that God has given you is you are the one. You are the father. You are the mother of what God is birthing through you right now. I know it's weird, because for me, it's weird for me too. Because I had no idea that the direction that God is taking me is one that he would take me. And I'm a planner, right? So I don't really like being shocked, right? I like knowing things are coming, and I like knowing that, hey, in 4 or 5 years, there's something that God is going to do through me, and I can intentionally prepare. But I think it caught a lot of us planners by surprise that God is showing us a new area and a new arena. And what's interesting, I believe, that the things that God is showing us, it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with us wanting to make more money. And it has nothing to do, but it's actually something that's coming from our heart. And I think that the environment that we're in, struggling and doing the things that we've been doing with Corona, and now the fight against racism, I think this is birthing something in us where we realize this is much bigger. It may not look like me, but it's in my heart. Now, don't trip. You're not the first person who ever had to struggle with this. If we go back to the beginning of the Bible, up around Exodus, we're introduced to this dude named Moses. One of the greatest leaders, in my opinion, to ever walk the face of this earth. Him too struggled with his next season's assignment. So let me remind some of you about Moses' story, and let me reintroduce to others. We're introduced to Moses in Exodus chapter 2. Moses, along with every male of the Hebrew people at that time, was born with a death penalty. Why did they have a death penalty? It was due to the insecurity and intimidation of Pharaoh and the Egyptians because of the growth and strength of God's people. So as a result, Pharaoh said, I don't want them to keep growing, so let's kill every male that's born and throw them in the Nile River. It's interesting how you can have a race of people who can hate another race so much that they be willing to do anything they can to stop their growth. It's all rooted in insecurity and intimidation. Somebody will catch that and somebody won't. But God had the power and the authority to pardon Moses from the penalty. I love the fact that God has the ability that even when we're born with death sentences, God can pardon us. Some of you who are watching here, you were born to single parents, and historically and statistically, your dreams weren't supposed to live. You were born in poverty, so statistically, your goals aren't supposed to live. You were born in a family where nobody had a college degree, so your vision for education wasn't supposed to live. You were born in a divorced home, so your marriage isn't supposed to live. Somebody type in the feed, that is not the end of my story. We serve a God who has the power and authority to pardon what another man has sentenced you. Even though you were sentenced, the fact that you're still here says you've been pardoned. That's the birth of Moses. As we go on, we find out that Moses was put in the river, but again, that's not the end of the story. We find out that Moses was picked up by his sister, and he was given to the prince of Pharaoh's daughter, saw him, and he was raised as the princess's daughter. That's interesting. I've said this before, and somebody actually brought it to my attention, not even knowing that I was going to preach about Moses. But the person who tried to kill him eventually had to feed him. His killer, the one who was supposed to be his killer, eventually became his feeder. And it made me wonder, I wonder if Moses was in heaven, and I wonder if he danced out of his white robe when he heard David on earth singing, God will prepare a table. I wish I had about 7 people who could actually finish that for me. God will prepare a table. What? Go ahead and put that in the feed. Don't be discouraged by people who don't want to see you succeed, because they may be the one who have to open the door for you. I'm looking for some reparations from some people who wanted to oppress me. One day Moses is grown. In Exodus says, he went out to his people and he looked on their burdens. That's Exodus 2:11. He went out to his people and he looked on their burdens. First, I want to talk about the passion. Somebody put that in the feed, the passion. The most frequently asked question in regards to our significance is, what on earth am I here for? Yeah, all of us have asked that question. What on earth am I here for? I truly believe that Moses was in a place right here in this season where he was asking himself the question, what on earth am I here for? Listen, let me tell you something. Write this down. Success isn't a guarantee quencher for our thirst for significance. Let me say that again for the people in the balcony. Success isn't a guarantee quencher for our thirst for significance. Moses was educated as a prince in Egypt. They were known as some of the smartest people in the world at that time. He was educated by the best and the greatest scholars that were available, yet he still wanted to leave the palace to go and look on his own people. That shows me that there was something that was lacking. Even though he was in a place where he could have been raised to be the prince, and who knows what position, title he could have eventually had, there was something missing, and I believe that he was searching for what his significance was on this earth. Listen, catch this. If you're searching for next season's purpose, start with this season's passion. I needed about 90 people in the building so I could feel something right there. Go ahead and put it in the feed. I'll go back and feel it later. If you're searching for next season's purpose, start with this season's passion. Only God can set a passion in you, which is the reason it can lead you to your purpose. Passion, I don't get it. Passion is what keeps you up at night. If you're passionate about something right now, it will have you up at 2 a.m. in the morning, sitting in your bed, dreaming about it. If you're passionate about something, it'll have you up at 6 a.m. with a notepad writing down. If you're passionate about something, it'll have you on YouTube for 17 hours straight, getting videos, trying to learn about that thing you become passionate about. If you want to know what the next season's purpose is, start with this season's passion. And I believe that there is a new passion that's being released in the body of Christ. I don't know what it is for you, but I definitely know a new passion has been released in me, and I'm trying to figure it out. For the first week, and this new passion, to be honest with you, just came about within the last 30 days, and I've really been wrestling with it, okay? I'm not even going to lie to you. It's only been about 7 or 8 days that I really just said, okay, God, I'll go down this road. So I'm not the only one. You're not the only one. We're wrestling with this thing, and we're trying to figure out, is this really my baby? Am I really looking at something that's been birthed through me? Because it doesn't look like me. It doesn't sound like me. The eyes aren't the same color. The shape is not what I thought it would be coming from my loins. But God is really saying, you're the one. That's why you have the passion. Listen, the revealing of this season's passion, it precedes the revealing of next season's purpose. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm in a state. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine, and I was sharing the burden that I have now, the passion that I have now that's new. And he was like, cool, what's up? What you going to do next? And I was like, I don't know. Now, you know, I'm not when it comes, I'm a planner, right? So you don't too often find me in a place where I don't know what's next. But that's where I am. And I think many of you, that's where you are right now. The passion is there, but you don't really know what's next. Because for me, history, every move that I've made that was connected to a purpose in a particular season, God has always preceded it with a passion. I can look back before I really just got involved in youth ministry. I'm sharing my story. I had a passion for youth. When I got out of prison, I wanted to help youth not go down the same road that I had. That was my passion. And then what happens a few years later? I find myself a youth pastor at a church. And then from there, because at that point, I just care about young people at that point. But then my passion started to change. Now I start caring not just about the teens, but I start caring about their mom and their daddy too, okay? I would start wanting to see whole families whole. And a couple years later, before I know it, as my passion shifts, then what happened? My purpose then for that season, it shifts, and then I become a pastor and start leading entire families where I was just leading youth. So my passion for me, it has always preceded the details of the purpose. So what's the point of what am I saying right there? Let's stop worrying about the details. Let's stop worrying about the plan. We're going to get to the plan. We're going to get to the details. But right now, if God has only revealed the passion, just sit right there and focus on the passion. So Moses' passion, it led him to leave the palace and go check on his own people. A lot of people are not going to like this one right here, but sometimes your passion leads you away from the palace instead of it leading you to the palace. And so many of us, we want to be in the palace. We want to be in the big seat. We want to have the big cars. We want to have the big house. We want to have 20,000 people following us on Instagram. We want to have 500,000 followers on Twitter. But what if your passion leads you away from the palace? Are you still okay with that? That's why I tell people all the time, if you're going to say yes to God, you got to say yes to whatever comes with it, because your yes may not lead you to be a millionaire. I saw one of our previous members like the page before I came in, Casey. Her passion, gifted, talented, it didn't lead her to become a millionaire. As a matter of fact, it led her to Africa, going with no job. What is your yes contingent on things that are tied to it from a material perspective? I got to ask somebody that, because I want to know what's your motives behind wanting to be in God's perfect will. What's your motive wanting to be in God's plan and know what he wants you to do? Is it contingent on what you're going to get out of it materially? I wish I could get about 27 people on the feed to say, God, you got my yes, even if it leads me away from the palace. I got a few people in the room. Y'all might as well say it too. Will your yes lead you? Are you okay with it leading you away from the palace? They said yes right now. So Moses leaves the palace to go check on his people, and he sees a Hebrew and the Egyptian getting into it, and as a result, obviously the Egyptian is putting his hands on the Hebrew. He got him down. So Moses jumps in and kills the Egyptian. After he kills him, he hid him in the sand. He had to run away. His passion led to a problem. Let's transition to the second part of this. We talked about the passion. Now let's talk about the problem. The problem with passion is it's hard to contain. Check this out. For any of you who've ever had small children, or maybe even if you had nieces and nephews, you'll understand this. One of the things, I got to a point to where my daughter was around 3 or 4, Bethany, that I stopped telling her when we were going to somebody's birthday party. I stopped telling her. I stopped telling her about 3 or 4. I tell her about 2 hours before. I used to tell her a week before. And her passion for the birthday party would drive me nuts for an entire week. Every day, multiple times a week, she would ask me about the party. Is it time to go to the party? It's Monday. Is it time to go to the party? No, I already told you the party is Saturday. Wake up on Tuesday morning. Is the party today? No, I already told you that the party is Saturday. It's only Tuesday. And then I got to deal with that on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. And then it gets worse. Adia on Saturday morning. Oh my God, it gets worse. I want to jump through the chimney and then jump off the roof head first, okay? So she wakes up. Her normal wake-up time may be 9, but because she knows it's a birthday party that evening, she's going to wake up at 6 a.m., knocking on the door, saying, is it time to get dressed for the party? And all day long, she's worrying me because she's so passionate about the party. Here's the thing what she missed. Is that if we had went to the party at 8 a.m., but the party didn't start till 5 p.m., we would waste a whole lot of time. We'd waste a whole lot of energy that was not necessary in that moment. And that's what happens when we can't contain and control our passions. We find ourselves jumping out there before time, and it ends up costing us energy. It ends up costing us time. It ends up costing us money. Some of y'all can realize, you can relate, because last year you jumped out too early and it cost you a whole lot of money. Last year you jumped out there too early. It cost you a whole lot of time. It cost you a whole lot of energy. So you realize now that your passion needs to be tempered in this season. Passion can cause you to move outside of God's timing and God's will. Listen, brothers and sisters in Christ. Nothing good will ever come out of being outside of God's timing and God's will. Catch that. You could be walking in something that God has willed for your life, but it can be the wrong timing. Moses had a passion to see his people free from oppression. Yet, he got out of timing, and it cost the life of an Egyptian, and he had to leave the palace. And for all we know, it could have been before his time. Patience has to be a partner with your passion. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really a patient person, okay? Listen, when you tell me that the pot of gold is at the end of the rainbow, I'm like, let's go. What you mean? What you mean, wait? What you mean, let's see how weather going to turn out? No, I can get to the end of the rainbow in rain, sleet, or snow. But guess what? I can find myself out of God's timing and out of God's will. And patience is a virtue, and it's needed for you in this season. You, the one who realizes that, yes, the baby is mine, the vision is mine, I accept it today. It's still, your passion is going to have to be tempered and laced with patience so you don't find yourself out of God's timing and out of God's will. So what do I do when I have passion but don't have no direction? That's when you prepare. Catch this, write this down, put this in the feed, somebody. Passion with no direction means you're in a season of preparation. Yeah, right, put that, let me say that again for the people in the balcony. Passion with no direction means you're in a season of preparation. What do you mean, no direction? If God has given you a passion for something, yet he has not told you what to do next as far as moving towards it, going left or going right, that means that you're in a season of preparation. God did not tell Moses to go and kill an Egyptian and free them from their oppression right then, but he had given him the passion. This was a season of preparation, and Moses made a grave mistake. So the problem forces Moses to have to leave Egypt, and he finds himself invited to a dinner by a man in the land that he ran into, and he ends up marrying the man that he ended up meeting his daughter, and they end up getting married. What I love about this part of the problem is that Moses' bad decision and mistake, it didn't cause God to give up on Moses. God's purpose for his life, it did not change. It didn't change. He had to run away from the palace. For all we know, that may not have been God's timing for him to leave the palace. That may not have been God's method for the way that God wanted him to leave the palace. Maybe or maybe not. We don't know. But what we do know for sure is that God's plan and purpose for Moses' life, it did not change. Now, was his timing affected? We have no idea. But what we do know is that his purpose for his life didn't change. How do you know it didn't change, Pastor? Because one day, Moses is out at work leading his father-in-law and sheep out to eat, and guess what? He meets God in a burning bush. I wish I had some people here that could let me know I'm blessing them right now. During that meeting, he goes from having just passion to then having the problem to finally getting the plan. Somebody put the plan in the feed. The plan was revealed. Catch this. I need you to put the bacon down and the sausage down right now. You need to get this right here. The plan was revealed during an encounter with God. I've been studying Exodus in the life of Moses probably about a month and a half now. I'm telling you, this part has been sticking with me. Two things that was big for me out of this. One is that Moses never asked God what was the plan and purpose for his life. Whoo! Moses never had to ask. And to be honest, when I really searched the scriptures, I hadn't read everything. I haven't tried, so I don't want to use this as an absolute. But while I was preparing for this off the top of my head, I couldn't think of anybody really who just came right out and said, God, what's the plan for my whole life? But we look through the scriptures all the way from Adam to Noah to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joshua, David, Solomon, Elijah, Isaiah, the 12 disciples, Paul, Timothy, all of them were given their plan and purpose without having to ask God for it. And it makes me wonder, why are we praying and asking God for our purpose when we really should just be praying and worshiping God and walking in whatever he's given us right now? Why? Because in due season, nobody has ever had to wait on God to reveal a purpose in the time that he wanted it to be revealed? Everybody he came to, when it was time for them to receive it, he went and he gave it to them. The plan was revealed where, though? When he was on holy ground. Because the angel, God spoke out through the burning bush, and the angel and said, Moses, take your shoes off. Why? Because you're standing on holy ground. It was on holy ground. It was in God's presence. Maybe you just need to get down on your face and your knees and see what God has to say about the next season of your life, instead of trying to intellectually listen. Intellectual people, you make too many mistakes. Smart people, you make too many mistakes, because you try to figure it out with your mind when God works through the Spirit. Ooh, somebody will catch that later on. The plan was revealed during an encounter with God. The plan was revealed to Moses when God chose to reveal it to Moses. So he was 40 years old when his passion arose for his people, when it was birthed. But he was 80 years old when the plan was birthed. You can wait on God, but you can't rush God. That's one thing that you can't do. You can wait on God to give you the next details, but you can't rush God. You can't force God. You can't push God's hand and say, give me the next details now. All you can do is wait and prepare with the passion that he's given you. Catch this, though. So God gives him the plan right there while he's on the mountain, and he's having an experience there on holy ground. Lets him know, hey, I want you to go deliver the oppressed people. I want you to deliver the Hebrews, my people, from Egyptian slavery and oppression. Okay? But this is something that jumped out to me. The plan was not about Moses. The plan just involved Moses. Catch this. I got the verse. I'm going to show you. The plan was not about Moses. The plan just involved Moses. So it wasn't about Moses becoming a leader. It wasn't about Moses becoming this big dog and being elevated to big chief. And I think too many of us, that's what we're dreaming about. And that's all we see from the vision, that, wow, this is my moment to become somebody. This is my moment to be somebody. This is my opportunity to blow up and be social media famous and be an influencer. But that is not what God cared about. It wasn't about Moses. It just involved Moses. Exodus 3:7-8 says, then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians. He didn't once say, Moses, this is now your season to be great. He didn't once say, Moses, this is now your season. You've served me so faithfully, you will now sit in the big chair in the pulpit, and people will worship you and honor you. That's not what he said. Everything he said had to do with the people that he was sending Moses to. What does that got to do with me, Pastor? The plan, the thing that God is getting ready to reveal to you, you need to know that it's not about you. It just involves you. The call to walk in the purpose, it's always rooted in bringing people out of their Egypt. It's never about you. It's always about the people that God is sending to you. Egypt represents a state of slavery, a state where people don't want to be, but don't feel like they're capable of getting free by themselves. And this is what I truly believe that God is releasing in the body of Christ, a new vision and a new purpose that's going to help people get free. I don't believe that he's releasing vision and purpose in this season so that you can get rich. Not to say that those things won't result, but I don't think it'll be about you using the money from your wealth just so you can buy houses and cars. I think everything that God is releasing right now into the lives of the believers as far as vision and birthing something, I believe that is all connected with getting people free from their slavery. God has called you to do more than just fulfill your dream of having 2 cars and a house with a white picket fence. So God gives Moses the plan, which is to go and free his children from slavery and lead them into their promised land. After the plan is given, this is when we find ourselves at our text. That was my introduction. Give me about another 2 hours and I'm done. No, I'm just playing. He responds as we get to our text in chapter 4, verse 1. Moses responds with but. I believe that many of us who are watching this feed right now, including myself, when God has revealed recently that new vision, that new passion, that new purpose, and maybe even the new plan, so many of us, including myself, we said, but just like Moses did. He looked at the plan, he looked at the purpose, and then he made a mistake. He looked at himself. He took his eyes off the burning bush and he looked in the mirror. He looked at himself, and that's the mistake that too many of us have made. God shows us the plan as we're looking in the burning bush, as we're looking in the face of God, in the Spirit, and we take our eyes off of him and we start looking at ourselves. Write this down. Don't let your but destroy next season's purpose. Don't let your but, capital B, capital U, capital T, don't let your but destroy next season's purpose. Nisha, almost everything, at some point, I don't know how long it was, but for a little bit, a part of time, I had a but where I tried to talk myself out of what God was showing me. All the stuff that I've done, it would seem like at this point in my life, Jasmine, that I shouldn't be dealing with that. At this point in my life, man, I'm about to be 40. I done did a whole lot of stuff from scratch. I done been in ministries much bigger than I ever thought I would dream of being a part of. We done started businesses, my wife. We done made albums. We done launched a church in the living room, and now we're here in a warehouse in Irving. And then just a few weeks ago, God says, this is where I'm taking you next. And guess what? I started looking in the mirror like, hold up. I don't know, sometimes I'm a little bit too transparent, but when Anthony, when all of this, with racism started coming up, Tasha started dealing with me heavy. Like, you got to do more. You got to do more. We out in the community. Our church is a community church. We go into the apartments, but we present the gospel. We feed them. But God started showing me, like, there's so many areas in Irving that you're not a part of. You're not doing anything to help the kids in the school. Okay? You're not doing anything to help them from an education standpoint. Your voice is not available at the city council meetings. Your voice is not available at the school board meetings. Where is your presence? So God, he was birthing a new passion, a new vision, a new purpose on the inside of me. And you know what? DeAndre, I started looking at myself, and I started comparing myself to some of the great pastoral activists in the country. And I started saying, ooh, you don't speak like that. I started saying, you don't grasp the concept of racism and social injustice, and you don't grasp it like they grasp it. You read just about 2 or 3 books on that subject. No, that ain't your baby. Can we go back to Maury Povich for a minute? You are not the father. I started looking at the baby, and then I started looking at myself, and I started saying, nope, the nose don't match. I wish I could put somebody in the feed tell me that's where you are right now. I started looking at the baby and started saying, nope, them ain't my lips. I started looking at the baby and said, nope, that's nappy hair. My hair is good, okay? I started comparing myself to the baby, and I said, no, this baby is a little bigger than the babies that I've birthed, so maybe there's been a mistake, but I had to realize just within the last 10 days that I am the one. Why am I comparing myself to somebody else? Because that's not what God is wanting me to become like. God wants me to be me. God wants you to be you, that new thing that God is birthing in you. You don't have to be on BET to fulfill your purpose. You ain't got to be on CNN to fulfill your purpose. You ain't got to have 100,000 followers to fulfill your purpose. God, what he's given you, you'll be able to do it. Don't let your butt destroy next season's purpose. Man, I pray to God I'm helping somebody right now. God's response to Moses with his butt was, let's just use what you already have. While we always trying to figure out what we need to go get because we don't feel adequate enough to accomplish the plan, as if God can really make a mistake, the first thing God tells him, the second thing God tells him, the third, he gives a couple of excuses. And every excuse that Moses gives him, he tells him to use something that he already has. He says, first, use the staff. What, the staff? The one that you use every day, Moses. The one that you use while you're at work from 9 to 5 leading the sheep. And more than likely, he walked around the city with it. The same thing that he had. God says, throw it down. It'll become a snake. Pick it back up. You'll use this as a sign. Moses gives him another excuse. He says, put your hand in there. Whoop. Pull your hand out. It's white like snow. Put it back in. Take it back out. It's out. And then he said, but God, I can't talk. I can't talk either. He says, okay, that's cool in the game. Let's use your brother. Every excuse he had, God said, the thing that'll overcome your excuse are things that you already have. He already had his staff, he already had a hand, and he already had his brother. What is God saying to somebody? You have everything. Here's my 3 points, and we out of here like last year. 1, when we give God what appears to be insignificant, he can make it significant. All Moses had to do when God said, give me the staff, put the staff down, he took an insignificant staff and turned it into a miracle. He took an insignificant pocket, put his hand in there, and turned it into a miracle. He took his brother, who, for all we know, didn't have a strong, close relationship with, he wasn't a public speaker by trade, yet he still used him. God will take what you consider insignificant, and he'll make it significant. Who is that? You may see yourself as insignificant, but God sees you as significant. He would not show you a vision or give you a passion and then not make sure you are qualified and equipped. Number 2, if we use what we have the way God tells us to use it, the plan will be accomplished. The problem is, I think too many of us want to be used in the same capacity as somebody else. But God is saying, that's not what I'm requiring of you. You can lower this stuff down. I'm not requiring you to do it like them. I'm not requiring you to talk like them. I'm not requiring you to look like them. I'm just requiring you to do it the way that I tell you to do it. If we use what we have the way God tells us to use it, the plan will be accomplished. Last one, and I'm done. With Jesus, it's more than enough. The staff wasn't the miracle worker. God was the miracle worker. The pocket in his garment was not the miracle worker. God was the miracle worker. His brother and his voice and his ability to speak was not the miracle worker. It was God. That's the miracle worker. I wish somebody get this right now. If God is with you, you are more than enough. You're more than enough. I believe that's what God wants somebody to catch on today, that you are more than enough. You may be dented, but you still work. You may be scratched, but you still work. There's a scratch and dent store right by my house. I actually went, it was Friday, see what they had in there. And if you know anything about scratch and dent furniture, how it ends up there is that from the time that it left the original warehouse to where it was supposed to go. In the truck, somehow it got dented, or it got scratched. So it winds up in a scratch and dent store. And you would ask the question, why would somebody buy something that was scratched and dented and try to resell it? The reason is that the owner of the scratch and dent store, he understands that just because it has a little scratch in it, it does not mean that it can't fulfill the function that it was created to fulfill. He understands that just because it's dented does not mean that it can't be powered up and used. So a dented stove can still heat your food up. A dented stove can still heat your food up. A dented microwave can still heat your food up. A scratched up dresser can still hold all of your clothes that fit on the inside of it. What's the point, Pastor? You may feel like you're dented. You may feel like you're scratched and not top of the line and not brand new, but guess what? You can still fulfill the purpose that you were created for. So I'm challenging about 20 people on today that you go back and you look at that baby. You go back and you look at that baby and you remember that the paternity test came back. And it said that you are the one. It looks a little bigger than what you expected it to be, but you are the one. It looks a little different than what you thought it would look like, but you are the one. It was an accident in your eyes. It wasn't planned for this to happen in summer of 2020. But God says, use the pappy. You are the one. I'm challenging 2025 people to accept that today. Say yes. Say yes. Listen, 10 days ago, I said yes. It took me a few weeks. I never told God no, but it took me a few weeks to say yes when he was showing me and giving me these new passions, new desires. And I can't believe different things that just have happened in 10 days. The people that I've met in this city, decision makers, major decision makers in this city, just within 10 days, all after I said yes. all after I said yes. I don't know what's going to happen next week just because you say yes. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't believe that your next can be triggered until you say yes. I dare you to put that in the feed right now. If you truly mean it from your heart, just say, God, you got my yes. God, we thank you for this moment.